Hi everybody, it's Nunu. I am back with another video because I've been getting a lot of emails and messages from people who've been sharing some really relatable stories about their abuse and the cults that they've been in. I've heard from a few ex-JWs and a few ex-Mormons, and there were a few other people from different churches like Seventh-day Adventists and Baptists that have said that they've suffered similar types of physical and sexual abuse. And so I know I haven't shared very much detail about the abuse that my family and I suffered while we were in the Jehovah's Witness religion. I just want to say it wasn't just us children. My mother, she was abused as well. And I would say more so psychologically than physically because she was sort of backed into a corner and she was married very young to a person who was disfellowshipped at the time, and my mother was coming, out of the Baptist church. And I was really young, so I don't really remember being Baptist or anything. I remember majority of my life we were Jehovah's Witnesses, and just to sort of recap a few of the videos and a little bit of my background, I was baptized, forced into baptism as a child at 11 years old. I was told that, if I wasn't baptized, that it didn't matter, how good of a girl I was or how much I loved God, Jehovah, that if I wasn't baptized and Armageddon came, that day or tomorrow, I was going to be destroyed. So I had to get baptized. And I remember crying, like not understanding any of it while I was being led into that baptismal pool, and I was shaking, crying, terrified. It was supposed to be, I guess, a happy day, but I remember crying and nobody really seeing me cry for some reason. It didn't seem like anybody realized, was at, because no one asked, why is this little girl crying? What's wrong with her? And they dipped me in the water and I came out of the water, and it was kind of scary because all these people were just clapping around me, and I'm like, they're clapping and this is scary. But I thought that I was quote unquote saved simply by just being forced into a baptism that I didn't understand. Later on I learned what being saved truly meant and what it means for me. And I'll get into that. To me, I haven't lost my faith, and I consider myself a believer in Christ. But I won't get into that too much because all of us have different beliefs. The purpose of these videos are to just talk about my experiences. I'm not trying to bash any particular religion or person or anything. This is just to talk about my experiences. And if you can relate in any way, I encourage you to reach out to me. You could email, leave a comment below. It doesn't matter if you were ex-Jehovah's Witness or any other, coming out of any other cult or religion that was that condoned abuse or that really contributed to any sort of, madness in your life. Because I think that spiritual abuse is one of the worst abuse. I think that when I was forced into baptism, that was the beginning of the abuse. That was spiritual abuse, using my faith or my beliefs against me, rather than letting me pave my own spiritual way and form my own personal relationship with God. They use it against me. So that's how I define spiritual abuse. And it started with that. And of course, the mental abuse it sort of started just really simple, small things like, controlling times that we had to read our Bible. We had to set aside times of the day, every day, to do a Watchtower study or read the Awake. And then we'd get quizzed. We'd have to answer questions like without the magazine in front of us. We'd have to quote, say quotes from the magazine. And the reason why this was done is because the man who my mother married, who was the Jehovah's Witness, when he was reinstated and our family became more popular in the new congregation that we had moved to, he became a ministerial servant. And he was, I guess, trying to make his way up to becoming an elder, because we had to be this overzealous family. We had to put on a really good show, and my mother was all for it. She loved the attention that we got when there was like something special going on. If there was a gathering of some sort, or whenever we would all go out in field service as a family, we had to pretend to be this perfect family when there was so much darkness going on behind closed doors, specifically the spiritual and mental abuse at the time. But it seemed like after he became a ministerial servant, the control became worse, and that control turned into physical abuse, turned into real violence. And the first time I remember he ever put his hands on me, in a really harsh sense, not just like a spanking or a tap on the hand, like don't touch that, or don't lie or disobey me. It was when I remember coming home from school and I had to do my Bible reading for the week, and we had our it was the ministry school that night, and I had to hurry up and do my Bible reading. And I remember him taking the Kingdom Ministry at the time. We had a Kingdom Ministries magazine, and quizzing me. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really read it because I had homework to do. I was tired, and I knew the meeting was coming up that night. So I remember him getting really frustrated with me because I, said that I had read it, but I didn't really read it. I just kind of skimmed over it. And he threw the magazine at me, grabbed me, and put his arms around my neck. Now, he got me sort of in like a headlock rather than a choke hold. And if you can imagine a 12-year-old little girl in the headlock arms of a big, strong 30-something-year-old man, that sort of gives you a visual. I know it's pretty visceral, how I'm speaking right now, but this was my experience. And I remember him slamming me to the floor and pinning me down. And I remember being so afraid. I thought I was going to die. He wasn't choking me, but it was a headlock, and he had me pinned to the floor. And I remember screaming, stop, let me go, help me. And I remember my brothers, two of my brothers, coming into the room and looking at me helplessly. And I was reaching out to them, screaming, help me, help me. And I couldn't understand why they wouldn't do anything, but they stood there looking terrified. Little did I know is that he had already began to abuse them. So I think they were kind of shocked at the time to see what he was doing to me, that it had begun. And they sat and watched until I was completely exhausted and drenched in my own tears. And he let me go. My stepdad at the time let me go. And he told me, he left me on the floor crying and said, you better study that. And when I come back, I'm going to quiz you, and you better know everything. So I remember sitting there shaking and trying to read everything and use my highlighter and highlight certain points and things like that. And he ended up not actually coming back in the room to quiz me. He did not. We got dressed for the meeting. I put on my dress, and we all went to the Kingdom Hall. I'm not sure if my mother was aware of what had happened because she was home, but she wasn't in that part of the house. We kind of had a big house. So to this day, I don't know. But I know later on, when things started getting worse, when the physical abuse turned to sexual abuse with me and my siblings, that she knew certain things. She was there when he would give us alcohol, when there were times where we have friends sleep over, and he took the opportunity to make us vulnerable by giving us alcohol, and he would, give us lots of food and sort of make it look like we were spoiled and we could have fun, but it had to be the secret, of course. And I'll talk more about the transition, because these things don't happen overnight. You don't just go into hurting someone. When you are being groomed for abuse, or you're transitioning into a certain part in your relationship, you have to grow to that part, whether it's a healthy relationship or it's growing into an unhealthy relationship. And that's what happened with my family until its eventual demise. And it left our family devastated and some of us homeless. The congregation did very little to help our family when it broke up. And again, I'll get more into that. I'm a little over my 10 minutes right now, but if any of you can relate, please do write to me. I'll talk more later about it, the transition and everything, and how things got worse. And it's hard. It's hard to talk about. And this is my little birdie out there by itself on the branch, because I still sort of feel alone, even though I know that there are people out there. And being newly out is hard itself, because when you're being shunned, I'm being shunned, and your family don't really talk to you, it's really hard. But some good news is that my siblings, two of my siblings, are starting to see the light. They started talking to me and asking me questions. They're still in Jehovah's Witnesses. They're still partially under the control of our family, who's still in, but I think they're starting to see the light, and that's sort of good news for me, because I'm not going to give up hope on them. I told them that if they have any questions, I'm there to answer them. I will talk to them and be there for them, like I wish I had someone be there for me. So it takes a lot of research. I encourage everyone to do your research on the organization that you're in, whether you're Jehovah's Witness or Mormon or any other cult or religion that you feel that you're in, that you feel like something's just not right. Do the research and read your Bible if you are a Christian and you have faith. Don't let people use the scriptures or any other materials to manipulate you. You have to come to your own conclusions. So I encourage everyone to do their own research and look at your life. I looked at my life. I looked at the things that were happening around me and the things that began to happen. I mean, it's unfathomable to think that a parent would take back the person who abused their own children. But that's a story for another time. All right, guys. I hope to talk to you all soon. I hope to hear from you guys. Take care. I hope everyone's well. Talk soon.